She parked her big white SUV across my driveway like she owned the place, left a note telling me not to go anywhere, and by noon that same car was sitting nose down in a ditch where I'd put it with my tractor. I thought that would end things, that she'd take the hint. Instead, it lit the fuse on the ugliest war I've ever fought on my own land. And before it was over, I'd be staring her down in front of the whole neighborhood while the sheriff slapped cuffs on her wrists. My name's Ethan Walker. I live on a piece of ground my family has worked for 4 generations. It's not huge, just enough to raise some cattle, plant some corn, keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. Out here, you learn a simple code. Work hard, treat people fair, don't go looking for fights. But when trouble rolls up your drive, you answer it. And on that Tuesday morning, trouble showed up in a gleaming white SUV with a note tucked under the wiper. The handwriting was sharp, almost angry, on fancy stationery. We need to discuss the new community access point. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back at noon. Karen Mitchell, HOA President. Community access point. That was her way of saying she wanted to carve a road straight through my best pasture so the subdivision behind me could have a shortcut. We'd gotten her letters before. We'd ignored them. This wasn't a request anymore. This was her marking territory. I stood there, grease still on my hands from fixing equipment, and felt the arrogance of those words settle like a stone in my stomach. I needed to haul feed into town. I didn't have time to wait for Karen. My wife Maggie stood on the porch sipping her coffee, calm, as always. She knew exactly what I was about to do. "The birdhouse camera's rolling, right?" she asked. I nodded. The old John Deere roared to life, rattling the rafters. I eased it out of the barn and rolled up to that spotless SUV. The bumper barely reached halfway up my tire. With steady hands, I slid the forks under her frame. I'd lifted boulders bigger than this. With a hiss of hydraulics, the nose of that luxury ride rose up like a begging dog. Neighbors drifted over, watching from fences and porches. Some were betting whether I'd actually do it. I didn't rush. I crept forward slow and steady until the front end dangled over the drainage ditch. Then I lowered the forks. Tires hissed into the grass, the frame thumped against the bank, and with one little nudge the SUV tipped nose first into the mud, sticking there at a ridiculous angle. Problem solved. Or so I thought. By supper time, the birdhouse footage was on the internet. Neighbor Tom had caught another angle on his dash cam. The clip went viral. Folks online cheered, called my tractor a justice delivery system. For a day, it felt like a win. But I've lived long enough to know a bully doesn't retreat when embarrassed. They plot, they dig in. And Karen Mitchell was about to dig hard. 2 days later, I got the first official strike back, a certified letter with HOA fines. $500 for unauthorized operation of agricultural machinery on a residential access road. $1,000 for unapproved modification of community landscape that was the tire ruts her own SUV left sliding into the ditch. And $2,000 for creating a public nuisance, citing the viral video as proof of my unpredictable behavior. Maggie opened it, read it twice, and muttered, "Here we go." Karen herself came marching down my gravel drive that afternoon, heels clicking like she owned the stones. She waved another document. "Sign the survey permission, Ethan," she said, "sugar sweet, or the county will sign it for you." I held it up with 2 fingers. "You practicing law without a license now?" She smiled, thin, and said, "I practice winning. People like you fold." Her game was clear, bury me in paper twist vague. HOA rules until they became weapons and paint me as a hazard until the county forced an easement. And then things turned darker. One night, my fuel tank was drained, 500 gallons of diesel gone. Padlock cut clean. A few days later, my fence was sliced open and the cattle scattered across back roads at dawn. We spent hours rounding them up, my neighbors out with flashlights and trucks trying to keep them off the highway. That morning, mud on my boots, adrenaline shaking my hands, I felt it, the hopelessness. I stared at the cut wire and thought, maybe I'm the fool here. Maybe I should just sign the papers, sell the easement, be done. I'd already been painted as reckless online. What if she managed to twist it all so I looked like the villain? What if I lost the farm anyway? For the first time, I felt like maybe she was right that people like me fold. Maggie sat me down at the kitchen table. She spread out the photos she'd taken, the broken lock, the boot print, the cut fence. "She's building a story," Maggie said, "but so are we. The difference is ours is true. We don't quit, Ethan. Not on this land." Her voice pulled me back from the edge. I realized then I didn't need to outscream Karen. I needed to outprove her. So we set a trap. I bought motion-activated cameras, GPS trackers, even a special UV dye you normally use to find leaks. Poured the dye into a fresh drum of diesel, left a flimsy lock on it bait. Then we waited. On the fourth night, the camera pinged. Grainy footage showed a man in a hoodie cutting the padlock and siphoning fuel. I slipped out with a flashlight. When I lit him up, he froze like a raccoon caught in the beam. Diesel had splashed on his hands, and under my UV light they glowed bright blue. He was literally caught red-handed, well blue-handed. He stammered, tried to run, but I blocked him. Name stitched on his jacket, Jerry. Cornered, shaking, he cracked fast. "It wasn't my idea," he gasped. "She paid me. Karen told me to cut the fence, drain the tank, make you look bad. She said if life got hard enough, you'd sell cheap." We recorded every word, got him to sign a statement. That was the thread we needed. Maggie dug deeper online, cross-checking HOA minutes and business filings. She found fake meeting records authorizing legal action never actually held. She found Oak Ridge Estates, a shell company tied back to Karen's maiden name. The whole scam was hers. She was the developer hiding behind her own HOA. Karen must have sensed Jerry had talked because her next move was desperate. A storm rolled in, one-night wind, howling rain coming down in sheets. Cameras caught two men with a chain at my main gate trying to yank it open. They weren't sneaking, they meant to storm my place, smash the evidence, maybe torch the barn. Phone lines were dead. No sheriff coming. It was just me. I fired up the tractor. Old Green growled louder than the thunder. Headlights cut through the rain as I drove straight through my side fence and came at them from behind. Their pickup jerked, trying to turn, but the mud swallowed their tires. I kept pushing steady, herding them off the drive like cattle until their truck slid nose first into the irrigation pond with a splash. They scrambled out soaked and terrified while I waded in and scooped up the burner phones that floated out of their cab. Evidence. More proof. When the storm cleared, the sheriff finally arrived. I handed him everything: Jerry's signed confession, the videos, the fake minutes, the phones. He nodded, jaw tight, and said, "We'll see this through." But Maggie and I knew the real showdown had to happen in public, not just in some courtroom months later. So we showed up at the next HOA meeting. The clubhouse was packed. Word had spread. Karen tried to run the meeting like nothing was wrong. Smiling, polished, but her eyes flickered. When she asked for new business, I stood. Maggie propped her phone on the podium. For the record, she said loudly, "This meeting is being live-streamed." Karen went pale. The room buzzed. I laid it out piece by piece. Showed the video of Jerry glowing blue, read his confession, displayed the fake minutes, then finally the company filings tying Oak Ridge Estates to her maiden name. The crowd erupted. Neighbors she'd bullied for years stood up, families she fined over flowers, parents she threatened over swing sets. One by one they spoke, voices shaking with anger. The tide turned. And then the doors swung open. Sheriff Miller walked in with two deputies. He carried a stack of papers, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Karen Mitchell, I have a warrant for your arrest." He read the charges: conspiracy, vandalism, insurance fraud, racketeering. That last word hit like a hammer. Karen's face drained white. She shoved past people, bolted for the exit. We all watched through the windows as she scrambled into her freshly repaired SUV. Tires squealed, she tried to flee, but panic made her reckless. She swerved too hard, hit the slick grass, and with perfect irony her car slid nose first into the same ditch I'd put it in weeks before. Deputies walked up, opened the door, and pulled her out in cuffs. That's where it ended. Not with me celebrating, not with high fives, but with the sheriff reading her rights and the HOA queen sitting in mud, her empire gone. And if there's one thing I learned through it all, it's this: bullies thrive on fear. Until someone shows proof, and once the truth is out, fear changes sides.